brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me. Ask the Paul, where we rise and don't fall.
Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. Now, today I have a special guest. She is the Director of Premium Audit at AF Group. She's also a member of associations close to my heart, the Atlanta Association of Insurance Professionals, also known as the NIA Atlanta chapter. Valda Evans, welcome to Baxter's Buzz.
Thank you so much for having me, Baxter. I'm excited to be here.
This is going to be fun. So, I want to first by kind of talking about how we met. So we met, you were with AF Group and you worked between Atlanta and then in Lansing. And so NIA Detroit, as we sort of branch out and try to make sure that we are not leaving the other side of the state out, we've been doing some outreach and some open houses in Lansing the last several years now. And you all were kind enough to host us a couple years back. We met. I did not realize the presence in which I was in until everyone started to brag about you. And I said, okay, let me talk to this woman and see what she's about. And we become fast friends. Your knowledge of the insurance industry, the way you move around, your leadership style. I just want to say like kudos and thank you for making time for today.
I so appreciate it. And, it's so interesting that this is a couple years ago that we met at our office in Lansing. And I consider myself a Michigan part-time resident because I'm there so frequently. Every couple of weeks I'm in Michigan and the rest of my time is at home. I really loved watching what the NIA Michigan Detroit group is doing and what you kind of are looking to do as you're branching out into the rest of the state. So I'm hoping that I can help with that effort as you continue to do it. I need to become a little bit more involved myself. So I think you guys have really good plans. I love where you're going with it. So thank you for allowing me to step into this space a little bit with you. So I look forward to our little chat today.
No, don't worry. I'm gonna put you to work. So don't worry about that.
I believe you.
So it's February. It is Black History Month, and I always like to say that Black history is American history.
Absolutely.
And in February, I like to highlight folks who have contributed in the in the American history space. So I said, Valda, let's get some time on the calendar and let's talk. And so who would you like to shine a light on and highlight today?
So, I thought about this and instantly when you asked me, the first person that came to my mind may not be someone that's obscure. It's someone that I think a lot of people know about, and that is Dr. Maya Angelou. And I picked her because her writing, one, is just amazing, but it's what her first book did for me and how it imprinted on me early in my life, and how I found interesting similarities between ourselves. I mean, here she is, a woman that was born in 28 in the deep South. I was born in 19, not 28. Nobody needs to know when, but several years after her, several decades after her, in the Caribbean. And just, how we can find so much similarities in our stories as we go about doing what we do. But beyond her writing, just looking at her life and how I've used it and even see myself as I've traversed my career and the way that I try to be there and work in the spaces that I work. So
yeah. So let's start there. Tell me about the book. What's the name of the book? And tell me how it resonated with you and why it's, struck such a chord with you.
So most people hopefully know the book, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing. And that's essentially like an autobiography for her. And she really talks about her journey. And of course, in the book, there's a lot of sadness in the book. There's a lot of racism, sexism, just all the isms, if you will, because there's so much systemic oppression, if you will, within her time and how she traverses that. But really, what I loved with her is that sense of resiliency and how we can see for ourselves as people enter our lives, good and bad, how they help us to bring out different parts of ourselves. And so as Maya found her voice, because again, if you know the book, there was a period of time that she just didn't speak because of an unspeakable act that was done to her. And so she felt like her voice, she had no voice and nobody wanted to hear it. And as we all go through and navigate our spaces, particularly as it relates to our careers, I think certainly as a Black woman, we often can think that we have no voice and there's no reason for us to speak up. No one wants to really hear what I have to say. I'm going to do a really great job and just be about my business, if you will.
Yeah.
So she really, in that book, as you saw her go through her different stages of life, the people who entered her life in different moments, mentors, that is such a big thing. We talk about Naya, right? That's something that we are about, and what that can do for someone to be a mentor to them, to show them why their voice is important, again, can change the world. So that's really why that book really resonates deeply with me.
So you said a couple of things that I want to just take a little time on. First of all, there's this figure of speech, and you said it while you were describing Maya, whose name wasn't even Maya, right? But that's another part. We could
That's
maybe
a,
get
that's
to
that's a
that.
whole different
But
segment.
you said, you being a Black woman in these corporate spaces, it doesn't even necessarily need to be corporate spaces. It could be just spaces here in America many times where you don't feel like you have a voice. I think about the symbolism of that phrase that we've heard countless times, but that this young young woman literally did not speak.
Exactly.
It's fascinating to me,
Mm-hmm.
that you can just, there are people that feel shunned and not listened to, but sometimes, I mean, it's still taught.
Right.
This young woman was,
She physically just chose not to speak. And I say chose, obviously I'm not a psychologist and I don't necessarily can speak to what may have all been going on in her mind, but she just chose not to speak
yeah,
because what could she say? Who wanted to hear what she had to say?
yeah,
And there's a lot of symbolism in that, which is why I talk about it that way, because you're right. Within our culture, we talk about not having a voice, because that is a terminology that you hear all the time. But when you think about it, again, if we want to think about it from a work environment, how important it is to have diversity of thought, to have diversity within our teams, to have people feel that sense of inclusion and belonging, that they do use their voice. And because that voice could help us to unlock, a project we've been trying to work on and we just can't find that thing. But the person who's sitting in the corner or to the sidelines, if you will, hanging out, thinking that no one wants to hear what they have to say, may have the key. So it really, again, is something that I just believe these times also really speak to, right? I'm not sure if there's ever a time that it doesn't matter. But since we live in this moment right now, I think it becomes even more in front of us, that we need to look at it and be sure that we're not closing doors where we should be opening them or widening them.
yeah. I love that. The other thought that I had was, there's this mentality, and I've been guilty of it as well, where it's like not self-advocating, right?
Absolutely.
And we're just gonna let the work speak for itself. I'm just gonna work hard, and then folks will notice. And um, I always say that hard work doesn't speak for itself. because it's too busy working,
Yeah.
and there are times when there may be an advocate or some sort of sponsor,
Hmm.
but most people don't ever get that person that sort of goes out of their way to endorse and sponsor them, right? They just run themselves into the ground and
Hmm.
no one sort of stops them. And then at some point when they leave or they're fed up, they go, well, what's wrong with Valda? It's like, you've had me in this position. You have not recognized my contributions. You haven't looked for other opportunities for me. You haven't watered this flower.
Yeah.
And now you're wondering what's wrong with me. So advocacy and sponsorship is important, but we can't wait for that. Um, as a leader, how do you work to recognize your team members and sort of your upline of the folks that report to you and then the folks that report to those folks? Like how do you ensure that folks are seen or that ideas are heard and that they are given, opportunities to grow in their profession and their career?
Well, I mean, that's something again that's very near and dear to me. Probably, drawing on my own experiences where I was so no one asked me, right? And so you do learn to advocate for yourself, but then you have to learn how do you do that. As the leader of my group, I think it's important that I model what it is I want to see my leaders do. So I take the time to do a simple one-on-one, right? That's like, and they're non-negotiables. And that's across the board. Everyone has to have one-on-ones in some light. And then I do skip level meetings actually
Mm.
with my leaders, direct report, just to talk to them. And then we identify in our talent assessment who are our up and comings, who are those individuals that we see has something, above and beyond, if you will. And then you give them a little bit more attention as well, just to make sure you're hearing from them. I've been known to have directors roundtables where essentially the group, the individuals will designate individuals that they have to show up on their behalf, to speak on their behalf to me, directly to me again, just hearing directly from my team about what they may think we need to do. I'm all about bring me a problem, but don't come without the solution. Because I very much want to hear what isn't working, but I want to hear from you. What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
Because I don't have all the answers, and that to me, it stirs up the innovation, right? Because that's people thinking about new ideas, new ways to do things. But again, it also gives them the opportunity to realize that you're heard, you're being heard.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm inviting you to speak. You don't even have to wonder if you should speak. I'm inviting you to
Yeah.
speak. And so I try to hit it different ways. You have people who are vocal. I'm one of those vocal people. I'm not shy, easy for me to speak in a room, but some people are just not that way. That's not who they are, but that doesn't mean that they don't have something to offer. So you have to make sure you have a modality that they can share their ideas, their thoughts. Could be anonymous. Some people actually want to be anonymous until they feel that courage to say, hey, that was me, or just to send notes. So we try a variety of ways. I'm very much of the mindset that your people are truly the most important thing you have as a leader on your team. No technology is going to be better than the person doing it. No new workflow is going to be better than the people who have to put it into practice. So you have to make sure you're investing, if you will, in the people so that they feel good about what they're doing and then they mirror that to obviously to our customers. So,
I love that. I love the just being aware, and this is part. I mean, this is the equity piece. This is the belonging piece. Um, just saying, okay, everyone may not raise their hand and speak up. Um, Many of my introverted friends will say, I don't mind speaking, but don't put me on the spot. You know, give me some time or
mhm.
let me be prepared that you're going to call on me. But then there's a group that may still not feel comfortable per se. And but you're still encouraging them to
Mhm.
to sort of share their idea anonymously so that that idea can get out there. And then if they want to speak up and kind of claim it at that time that they can.
Exactly.
But it's the notion that we all have value to provide and we all have insights. We are doing things. If I am part of your upline and I report to someone who reports to you, I'm doing a particular job every day that you may or may not have ever done or
Mhm.
may not have done in quite some time. And so the insight that I may have could be something that never occurred to you that would make all the difference as far as a improvement of a sort of process or something like that. And if you don't give those folks the opportunity and the encouragement, you'll never get those ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And really that again, that's the reason why, I have like my focus groups, if you will, because that's what my director roundtable is. It's a focus group. It's allowing the people who are actually doing the work to bring things to leadership, and not in a manner of complaint, because that's a very different type of conversation when someone's telling their leader, or their manager, that this doesn't work, or why do we have to do A, B, and C? But they come with the full knowledge that this is an idea generation. We're here to really think about what is it we want to do, and then to prioritize it, right? Because there's only so many resources, there are only so many hours, and we can't take every initiative up. So let's really talk about what the value is in it. So I also think that gives them a chance to, that's a development, right? So I'm developing the team. I'm actually looking at who is doing what, how are they contributing, what are they a strategic thinker, is this person just very good with communication? You start to see again who you have on your team, building your bench strength, thinking about that succession planning. Just different ways of doing it, and it doesn't have to always be this uh, specific formal process.
yeah,
There are many ways to kind of get at it, because to the point that not every person is going to show up in their best ways, and it may not be the right term to say best way, but depending on the forum, you might get something different from an individual,
yeah,
right? So you need to have a variety of ways that people can show up
yeah.
and show you what they're capable of doing.
That's being inclusive, and that's also it's being intentional about making sure that folks are being heard. I gotta share a piece of a conversation that I had yesterday that just um the critical thinking um versus problem solving.
Mm.
And person I was talking to was trying to explain it to one of their team members. They said, "You're a great problem solver, but I want you to be more of a critical thinker." And they were like, "Well, what's the difference,
That's
right?"
right. Yeah.
And you said they may be good communicators, but they may not necessarily be strategic.
Strategic. Right. Right.
And these are areas that we can grow in. But if someone thinks that they're already strong in it, or they don't see the difference, or
Yeah.
they didn't get the opportunity, that coaching opportunity, then there's still a lot of meat on that bone, and
That's for sure.
they're not going to
Yeah.
be able to be stretched as much as they can be stretched, right? So it's good stuff, good stuff. All right, back to Ms. Doctor.
Miss Maya, you want to talk
Yeah,
about Maya
yeah,
some
yeah,
more?
yeah. I thought though I think we have some more opinions about this, but I really love, started with her really being mute for several
Yeah.
years, and
Yeah.
this whole notion of folks not having a voice or feeling like that they have a voice, figuratively. um the book resonated with you just from, you talked about her resolve and resilience. um she kind of became everyone's like grandma, You know, for as long as I have been alive, it was like that was like Mama Maya almost, right? And we wanted to hear her thoughts and how
Yeah.
she sort of saw how certain things were, her perspective on things that were going on in the world. But um, are there other pieces of writing or any or other contributions that she made that resonated with you kind
Oh
of
my gosh.
after that first?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that book, again, if this was a different program, I could speak to different parts of the book that, had brought out different things in me. But with Maya, right, and Still I Rise. I mean, like literally, that's an anthem.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an anthem, right? It purely speaks to being able to face down almost anything, regardless what it is and regardless what the situation is. Again, I mean, you can liken all of these things to your career, certainly to your personal life if you want to, sports, whatever it is. So her writing, I mean, so I really chose her. That book resonated with me. And so that's how I got introduced to her that way.
Sure.
But the way in manner that she wrote, but the way she actually spoke, actually, for
Mm,
someone who chose to be mute for so long, it's amazing how well she spoke and what type of orator she really was. She was so articulate, and the way she was able to just bring power with her words and the simplicity of the words sometimes, if you really listen to them. But, her writing, Still I Rise. Phenomenal woman. I mean, again, I don't know if it's because I am a Black woman, why some of her writings really do land on me very heavily, or if it's just the fact of just what she brings about. She allows you to own your greatness,
yeah.
own your power. And I have to say, own your greatness. I have a friend, Richard, over Austin, and they have a book with that name. I'm calling it out. Very proud of them. And I actually said that because I love it, but that's the title of one of their books. And it's about actually their book, since I mentioned it, is about imposter syndrome. And
Mm,
that's actually something that many of us, walk around with and
yeah.
have to work our way through in order to be able to ascend to where we were, what I would call our God intended purpose, right? Like where we're supposed to go. But sometimes we hold ourselves back because of maybe something that happened to us, some trauma in our lives. So owning your greatness is to find the way to unlock that so that you can go and find your purpose. Um, and I think Maya brought that about, right?
Yeah.
That was actually one of the things that she was always coaching and mentoring people to do, whether it be in her writings or in her speaking and so on.
Yeah.
So,
So being in these corporate spaces, I've been around now in different, environments and different businesses and industries. You're talking about finding yourself. When did, and I'm assuming, so let me just establish a baseline first.
mhm.
I would imagine that there were a lot of spaces where folks didn't look like you, Velda. And especially as you looked at the next level of whatever that would be, right?
Mhm.
Tell me when you realized that was it just something that you were just it was just innate, or was there a time where you were dealing with that imposter syndrome and then like where you felt like, no, I belong here? Like, can you speak to the time where it like the light switch went on for you?
It's an interesting, I'll tell you what's interesting about that. As I was coming up through my career, I didn't have those sense that I didn't belong somewhere. And this may sound odd to some, maybe to others it makes sense. But as a Caribbean person, I'm just going to say this: I was not necessarily raised with some of the same. I don't feel like I was burdened by some of the challenges that I know because I went to school in the States, so I understand some of the legacy and some of the things that I believe can become parts that we tell ourselves in our minds that we think we don't belong somewhere. So in my early parts of my career, I did not have that problem. I really didn't. I mean, between where, I went to school and in a very mixed community, so I did not feel like I didn't belong in a space in the early parts of my career. That actually started to happen as I got closer to the top. The further up I got is the more that doubt that comes in, which I can't always say I know where it comes from, but that's when I started to feel it more so. So it wasn't really in the early parts of the career. I was navigating that easy enough, confident in my abilities and what I can do. But then you start to question yourself, like, can I do this? Do I know what I'm doing? Should I be here? And it sometimes seems so irrational, to be honest with you.
It's always irrational, but
It's very irrational.
but tell me what happened. Was there a light bulb moment?
So for me, it's through a series of conversations with different individuals who were, had already transcended and, made their leaps. And so I do think it's important. That's why mentorship and allyship, to be frank with you, are very important because those conversations weren't only had with people who looked like me. They were had with people who didn't look like me and people who were championing and saying, no, this is what you should be doing. And this is where you belong because you are actually better at this than I am. I actually had a leader that said that to me. And that was a powerful statement because this is someone that I respected a lot. And so those are the things that can sometimes help us when we enter and hit those moments of doubt.
Yeah.
And the crisis of confidence, if you will. You sometimes need people to just kind of speak into you and remind you how you got where you are and what you're made of and how much further you can go. It does help to get over the hump.
So there's the piece of sort of someone mentoring and coaching, right? Could be two different things, but let's just put them in one box right now. The mentoring and coaching piece. But then there's that sponsoring piece, right? And the sponsorship is different than mentorship because sponsorship says, I'm your sponsor. I'm in a space that you don't have access to, but I am saying your name and I am referring you, recommending you. I may be standing on the table, pounding the table for you. It says this person belongs here. We need to give this person an opportunity. And all of those things are important in their own way. And we have to make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with the right people. So folks that fill our cup, that can help us navigate some of those things, right? Folks know my networking, my passion for networking and the importance of the group. So you probably heard some of this before, but then also mentorship you can go out and ask for.
Yes.
Even a coach. You can't ask for anybody to be a sponsor. Sponsors have to they have to do that on their own. You can ask, but you're not in those rooms, so you don't know if they're actually doing the things that they're saying.
Yeah.
That has to come from them, right?
Yeah, and you know what? So the important thing is, in getting a sponsor, if you will, right, is making sure that you're visible. So how you talked about in the beginning, that hard work doesn't speak for itself. It doesn't entirely. Obviously, you have to have some substance. So it has to start with doing a good job. You have to have done a good job and are doing a good job that someone would even want to sponsor you. That's the first thing, right? So for sure. But then you need to go outside of, just doing your 9 to 5 or your regular. You got to put yourself out there and speak to people. Speak to people who are not in your immediate area. See who your partners are in your lateral. Get to know them better. Get to understand what they're doing, what they're working on. And truth be told, give them some ideas if you have something. If you know something from where you're sitting and you can see how their world could be better, share that. Don't gatekeep. Don't hold it to yourself, because that's sometimes the best thing you can do. So you do that and you start to build rapport. You start to build your network outside of the group that you work with. And then as that happens, you start just traversing in different spaces, and you become known and you become recognized. And especially if you continue to do that good job, right? You do need to be doing a solid job.
Yes.
And then hopefully, if you are indeed lucky enough, somebody is speaking your names in the rooms that you're not in, so that when they come to you and share with you that there's an opportunity to work on a project, that's going to be a high visibility project, or be a part of a cohort for something that matters to the company, that you're like, oh yeah. And say yes, by the way, say yes.
Yes.
Don't wonder, man, can I do it? Do I have time? That's the time to make time. I
Yeah.
will tell you that. Make time.
Now that's the conversation we're gonna have on the podcast about that, because that's a whole thing. I had someone tell me, I am going to recommend you for
Mhm.
this thing that's coming, and you make sure that when someone starts to investigate, once I put you on the radar, you make
Mhm.
sure that they don't have anything to say that poke holes in my endorsement of you, right? And
Absolutely.
that speaks to what you're talking about. You got to take the work, you got to put first things first, because the networking and all that stuff is important, but you have to have good, uh, in sports, like in football, they call it good tape. You gotta have good tape. You have to put good tape out there, so when somebody
Exactly.
reviews it, they see
Exactly.
that this person is
Yeah.
solid and excelling in their role, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you have to think about it. This is oftentimes their reputation, right? We all have political capital as we talk about it. And so this is someone using their capital on you. So you surely don't want to squander that, because you better believe they'll never do it again. And their friends will remember it and go, oh, I'm not doing that. Not
Right.
for him or her, because, they couldn't produce the tape, right? They didn't have the goods, not
Hmm.
the real goods. So you do want to make sure you're solid. We talk about, how you continue to grow. We should always be pouring into ourselves, continuing to develop, inside of work, meaning the things that you're doing, but, educational stuff, it could be, CE classes, read a good book. There are a lot of great books out there that can help you, podcasts that can help you develop. So you should be continuously learning, growing. A growth mindset is one of the best things you can have, because change is inevitable and it's going to be constant, especially in our world now with the technologies being as they are. Everything moves so much faster. So you want to be flexible. So when people do bet on you, they're going to get the return on their investment. It's a significant thing in corporate.
Speaking of podcasts, if anyone watching or listening to this is anything like me, they're gonna say, "Why did y'all stop? Why?" I want to hear more from Valda. This has been great. I just want to thank you again, and say, just to put a sort of tie it all together. There are folks out there that need an opportunity, and you may be the person that can open that door for them. You could be that person to encourage them to use that voice that they have. And don't be a gatekeeper, to Velda's point. Be someone who opens doors and helps build bridges and helps provide value to whomever that they wherever they go, because that news will travel fast. And when that opportunity for that sponsorship comes, you'll get that sort of unanimous sort of yes for whatever that opportunity is, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the goal. That's the goal. I really enjoyed my time here with you, Baxter. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And you're right. You and I can chat all day. We could keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm happy that you had me on. I'll be happy to join again, and we can talk about this or talk about something else.
yes,
But it's just really good stuff.
yes. No, thank you. And I'm going to take you up on that too. She is the Director of Premium Audit at AF Group, Valda Evans. On behalf of Valda, I am Baxter E. Hall. I want to let everyone know that you are all capable. You just need to embrace your own frequency. And until next time, peace.
Welcome into his brain. Welcome into his frequency. Enter at your own risk. Come be at peace with me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe, share, and also hit that notification button as well. Thank you so much.
Financial literacy to authentic Black history. This real rap.